happen to be fanboys.
Yeah.
Because fanboys writing will end up giving you things like 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. Well, and they get caught up.
I'm sorry?
I think they get caught up in the minutia of things a lot of times.
Yes, that can happen. And that's the reason fan fiction sometimes gets a bad reputation.
Right.
Because, and there's some remarkable fan fiction out there, but a lot of it is written by amateurs, and we're all amateurs at some point. I mean, I repeat, I don't read my old stuff. But the thing that was great about that era of the EU is that a lot of it was being the novels and the comics. A lot of them were being written by people who were professional writers, but really gave a damn about Star Wars, and it was a cool time. They would make a point of trying to reference each other's work, and whenever they could back then, because it was different. The Marvel series tended to be, pushed or relegated to the it sort of happened in the past thing, but we don't talk about it now. But the truth is, there were still a lot of writers who gave a damn about that and were working it in.
Yeah.
And so it was a fun time to be reading the EU. It was certainly a fun time to be writing it.
Yeah. Quick plug. You, of course, along with Joseph Baronato, edited those Star Wars books for Sequart, and I wrote an article in the third one about that sort of fallow period when people weren't really paying attention. Those
that
dark.
Was a fun essay, by the way.
Thank you. I really enjoyed doing that.
If I didn't tell you in the past, I think I did, but if I didn't, I'll tell you again.
You did, and I appreciate it. I always like to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Had a lot of fun doing that.
It was right up your alley too. Given how you get with nostalgia, you were the right person for that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and also I think that it's just that idea that who does it belong to? Does it belong to anyone? Does it belong to a corporation? Does it belong to fans? Does it belong to fans who have been fans for longer? How much of it is just because of how old you might be or how young you might be? And I always think that that's an interesting subject to explore when it comes to.
I think the answer to that
things.
question is yes.
Yeah.
Because it belongs to the corporation, it belongs to the new fans, it belongs to the old fans. And
yeah, sure.
That's where all the debating and the arguing comes from.
Right.
Because in different ways, it belongs to each of those groups and more.
Right.
And that's what makes it so much fun, but it also is the cause of a lot of headbutting.
Right. Well, it's just a matter of how seriously one takes it, I think, too. And I think
Here's
that...
the thing. I've always felt that that continuity matters, canon matters, up until the point that they don't.
Right. Yeah.
In that, I'm all for plugging the holes. Everything that I wrote with Star Wars ended up having references to other people's works, and it's a thrill. But I also think that good storytelling has to come first.
Yeah, that's absolutely sacrosanct.
Which is why these holes exist in the first place,
Right.
And if someone else can come along and plug that hole, then hey, what you wrote gets even better because it's no longer is discontinuous.
Yeah.
So I think that I hate to say the phrase canon schmanon because it's not like I believe in throwing out canon.
Right.
That's already been done.
Yeah.
That didn't go over well with fans. But I do think that good storytelling comes first, which is why once I started enjoying the Clone Wars cartoon, I was able to overlook the fact that it routinely shot holes in the expanded universe, which bothered me a lot at first.
Right, yeah.
At one point, I just sort of threw my hands up and went,
Okay.
I'm going to look at this as something it's turned Star Wars into a block of Swiss cheese, but you know what? It's still tasty.
Yeah, I think that's the right attitude to have. So moving from that into something that belongs to maybe a smaller group of us by virtue of the fact that it has a smaller fan base, but you've also done a lot with the Planet of the Apes mythos.
Yeah, that goes back to the mid-2000s. And it's funny because my becoming someone who's done a lot of apes work was totally accidental. I had lost my job it was, years ago and was looking for something to fill my time. And so I started rereading everything, all the old Planet of the Apes comics and rewatching the movies and shows. And I had put together, just for when I wasn't looking for a job, I just created this simplistic timeline of events that incorporated all the comics up until that point. And because anytime you see a timeline of Planet of the Apes, it's always just the movies. So So I said, well, can I work the TV show in? Can I work the comics? It's not a perfect fit. There are many flaws in trying to make that work because they contradict each other, but it was fun. And I turned it into a website, and Ed Gross, anyone who is around my age, so somewhere between your age and my age, should know the name because the guy used to write 1,000 books every year. He was looking to launch an independent publisher. I forget what was he going to call it? Timeline Books, I think it was going to be. And he saw the website online and asked if I'd turn it into a book. And I did, and then unfortunately, and I do not in any way fault Ed with this, we're still good friends, but Ed wasn't able to launch Timeline Books. and then so instead, I completed it anyway, and then it was eventually published as a book called Timeline of the Planet of the Apes. And I had so much fun with that I wrote a sequel, Lexicon of the Planet of the Apes, and then because of those, a couple years later, Titan Books allowed me and Jim Beard to edit a short fiction anthology called Tales from the Forbidden Zone, and that was just so much fun to do. And because of that, I ended up writing material for Boom Studios, the comic book publisher.
Yeah, great company.
Materials for their Planet of the Apes archive reprint series. I've actually got more work upcoming for them, but I can't talk about it yet.
Hey, that's cool, man. I understand.
Yeah.
I would just like to observe that it was a ballsy move for you to just keep writing it, even after there was no longer any evidence that you would be able to certainly get it published.
Thanks. So, what happened with that was it was disheartening, but my reason for doing it was this. I had become friends with, I'd gotten another job in the years since I had written this website. And I was the managing editor of an online, it wasn't even online, managing editor of a print magazine called Advanced Imaging. And I became best friends with the art director, Paul Giacchetti, who's sadly passed away a year ago. And Paul and I were really the most well-oiled machine. We saw everything the same way. And we worked closely together, so it made it really easy to work together. And then one day we just said, we both between us have a good deal of experience in publishing. Let's launch our own publishing imprint. And it's kind of like saying let's go to Hollywood and be a movie star. This isn't But then in the midst of all this, the thing with the timeline, with the Apes book happened, and we said, you know what? We can do this. I know how to edit. You know how to do graphic arts work and art direction. Let's make the timeline book the first publication, and then we'll hire some other authors. And that's kind of how it started. So, ironically, Ed not being able to do timeline books not only got me to finish that book, but also launched Hassline Books, which was the name of the company.
Wow.
We had a lot more. We published a number of books from different authors, and then sadly, when Paul died, a number of the books that were being planned, I had to cancel simply because I didn't have it in me to continue the Hassline without him. But yeah, so I think part of it was, I just wanted to finish that book. I had written so much of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I got like 30 pages left of a 330-page book. I'm just going to do this. And then if it ever gets published, you know what? I'll just make it the most amazing damn website anyone's ever seen. But yeah, so like it started me on a pretty fun period of my career. So, and then because of that, I actually got back into Star Wars again because I had written a lot of stuff for the Star Wars universe over the years, for Dark Horse Comics and for Tops and for the StarWars.com and I've lost track. But a couple, various The Insider. I was a columnist for them.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just sort of stopped writing for them for years. But because I had done the Apes books, I ended up recently doing a trilogy of writing some materials for a recent trilogy of books from IDW, reprinting the Archie Goodwin and
Al Williamson.
Al Williamson.
Oh my God, that's are
the pinnacle of Star Wars.
I think that's the height of the medium. To be honest, I don't know that there's. It's always funny to me because I'm not interested in what Disney is doing with Star Wars. I'm just not into it. And
yeah, I get that.
When people give me a hard time about that, they're like, "Won't you just see it? Won't you just go see it?" I'll always say, "Why don't you read these comics? Why don't you read these Archie Goodwin, Al Williamson comics? Why don't you read these?"
Well, I'll tell you this. I've had mixed reactions myself to the Disney films. I've liked them to different degrees. The one that to me really stands out is Solo.
Yeah.
Because Solo feels like it's a Brian Daley novel.
Yeah.
And as someone who has a passion for the Brian Daley Han Solo novels and L. Neil Smith's Lando Calrissian novels and the Goodwin Williamson strips and the Marvel comic series, I like the old school stuff. For me, Solo was the first thing in the Disney era that truly felt like it belonged back in the 70s and 80s. It was great.
I might need to see that because you're the second person in 2 weeks that's given me that sort of endorsement of it.
Yeah, I really felt like I was watching a Daley novel. And I sat there grinning the whole time, and I know a lot of people who felt the same way.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll make time for that one. To be honest with you, I don't really take in a lot of genre entertainment anymore, to be honest. There's not a lot of like science fiction shows that I follow anymore or anything. It's just sort of, I see the Marvel movies when they come out, and that's about it as far as my viewing habits. For the most part, it's unless you talk about like crime or espionage stories or even sort of spy-fi. But outside of that, it's rare that I even have the inclination anymore to go see a lot of that stuff. And I think that the reason for that too, or at least part of it, is that I write in those fields, and it's kind of almost ruined me for it, which I don't think is the case for you.
Well, it's funny you say that. As I mentioned, that there was a long period where I wasn't where I wasn't submitting anything to Lucasfilm. And that's kind of the reason, actually. I had gotten burnt out on the very things I loved for a long time. I think it's bound to happen. When you immerse yourself in something, there comes a point where your avocation becomes your vocation. And it's difficult sometimes to maintain enthusiasm. I mean, think back when you're in high school and you chose to read a novel. Meanwhile, at school, you were being told to read The Good Earth.
Right, yeah.
They're both the same thing. It's a reading experience. You're reading a novel.
Right.
But you have to read The Good Earth.
Yeah, there's a test later.
This book.
Yeah.
But you have to read The Good Earth.
Yeah, you're going to have to produce something.
Yeah, and you're going to, exactly. Like it's almost like on some level being told to read it makes it not good.
Right.
Now it's not rational, because if you then we're told to read something else and you chose to pick up The Good Earth, you might like it. Chances are you wouldn't. Quite frankly, I hated The Good Earth. so that's a bad choice for this. But look, I'll give you a better example. I happen to love the novel Catcher in the Rye.
Right.
And I had to read it in school, and years later I picked it up again and read it again on my own, because I wanted to just read it for the sake of reading it, not because I had to take notes and answer questions and do a quiz. And so I think that that's what the difference is. If you immerse yourself in writing about a certain genre or a certain franchise, there comes a point where you just get sick of it.
Yeah, you reach a point of saturation.
With several things. It hasn't happened with Abe's, interestingly. If they came out with 17 TV shows, I would start watching all 17 of them. But it definitely happened with me with Star Wars for a long time, and it's happened with me with other things. Franchise fatigue, I am a person who watched Star Trek going back to when it was original, although I was 2 years old, and it was in a crib because my mom was watching it. But right. I can truthfully say I watched it when it was original.
There's a lot to be said for seeing things that early on.
Yeah, what? I'm sorry?
There's something to be said for seeing things that early on in your life.
Yeah,
I mean, that was Star Wars for me. It was ever present. There was never not Star Wars around.
Yeah, exactly. It was ever present. When I grew up, Star Trek was something that I watched from when I was basically born.
Right.
And my mom also watched The Outer Limits, and she watched The Twilight Zone, and so these three shows, and then Planet of the Apes films, she loved them. So she instilled in me a love for this stuff, and so it's always been there.